go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Talk Soccer to Me podcast. This is episode 26. Today is March 10th. We got a lot to cover from last week. Starting in the midweek, we had Premier League action, match week 29. Important matches in both the title race, the Champions League spots race, and the relegation race, which is just heating up. As well, in the midweek, there was Copa del Rey action. There was Copa Italia action. We get into the weekend. We had some FA Cup action to look forward to, as well as league games in Germany, Spain, and Italy. And then at the back end of this episode, we're going to hit some Champions League coverage that I wasn't able to hit last week, but we'll get into some predictions, look at the bracket, look at the Europa League bracket, and look into the Conference League bracket. Before we get into all the action, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. You would know that maybe if you're already listening, but we're getting the YouTube channel up and running too. It's Talk Soccer to Me on all streaming services, all platforms, anywhere you want to listen. We post clips on the Instagram, TikTok, so anywhere you want to follow, share, like, subscribe, leave a good review, do whatever you got to do. Any support towards the channel is great. But with that being said, let's waste no time. Let's get into the match week 29 action. Starting up first was Brentford versus Bournemouth, and that was a 0-goal affair. We hate 0-goal affairs. So we're going to move to the next one. The first game on the midweek that actually did give us some action was Everton versus Burnley. So let's jump right into it. 32nd minute, Everton win a free kick. James Garner sends it in from 35 yards out. It was perfect delivery to the 6-yard box. The Burnley keeper stays on his line, and James Tarkowski rises above everyone else, heads it into the far corner to give Everton a 1-0 lead. And then the 60th minute, 6 minutes after Everton actually had a goal called back for offsides, they were in the attack again. Dwight McNeil against his former team passes it quickly to Iliman Ndiaye, who sends a perfect ball into the box to meet the run of Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, who neatly chips it over the Burnley keeper. Those were the two goals in this game. Final score, Everton 2, Burnley 0. I mean, what a season for Everton so far. In the last 2 years, they've just been in constant relegation battles towards the bottom of the table, and then David Moyes comes in last year, sort of rights the ship towards the end of the season, but they just continue to impress me as the season goes on. I know at the beginning of the year, it was really exciting with Jack Grealish coming in and what he was offering to their attack. He's gotten hurt. I think the signings haven't been as ideal. And yeah, this Everton team has struggled to score this season, but they've been very stout, disciplined, defensive. Moyes has gotten playing good soccer, and they're up in 8th. You know, they're within a point of what will more than likely be a European spot. I mean, there's a good chance 8th could end up being a European spot, but they're in a European fight, and they're 5 points off of the Champions League spot. If you'd have told an Everton fan at the beginning of the season, hey, you're 5 points off the Champions League spot, I think they would be ecstatic. As for Burnley, they're probably dead. I mean, they're 3 points above Wolves. Spoiler, they're a good bit behind anyone else in the title fight. You know, I know how hard it can be for recently promoted teams in this league to come back and do something. And yeah, as for Burnley, I think this one's just as good as gone. Next up was Leeds versus Sunderland. Two recently promoted sides. Leeds struggling a little more this year than Sunderland has been. It was 0-0 at halftime, though Leeds were the more dangerous team in the first half. 64th minute, though, we finally got some action. Leeds thought they'd scored from a set piece, but Joe Rodon strayed off sides. It was kind of classic VAR fashion, killing the vibe. I don't know what the solution is. And then almost immediately after, Sunderland drive down the field. The ball bounces around in the box. Leeds United player Ethan Ampadu appears to hit it with his arm, like intentionally, like pushes up against it. I mean, you hardly ever see handballs called anymore. But it was a penalty. Habib Diarra steps up for Sunderland. His shot does make contact with the Leeds United keeper, Carl Dallow, but there's just enough on the shot, and it gets to the back of the net. The final in this one was Leeds 0, Sunderland 1. The main conclusion from this game was just sometimes VAR can suck the life out of game, and I don't have a solution. I mean, that's kind of what happened in the Leeds game. You know, a team that's struggling in a relegation fight, they score an exciting goal off of a free kick, and then there's this 3-minute long VAR review after you've already celebrated just for it to get ruled back, and then 2 minutes later, handball is called against you. Again, VAR, kind of a soul killer, soul sucking process, and I think it was a handball on Ampadu, but like where I think I would be frustrated, and I'm not even a Leeds fan, is the fact that I don't even know what a handball is anymore. I've seen a dozen decisions in the Premier League this season go both ways. Where I don't know. I don't know what the ruling is or what they're telling referees because it doesn't make sense. Now this one probably was a right call, but it's just kind of frustrating, to watch handballs and see nothing really get done with it. Sunderland, though, this was a big one. With the win, Sunderland hit the 40-point mark. It's a good old rule of thumb in the Premier League. If you can hit 40 points in the season, you should be good to go. Now, no, I don't even think there's any disappointment because, yes, they were towards the top of the league at the beginning of the season. They were pushing top 4, top 5. There was, people are going to write their articles and be like, whoa, could this happen? Could this happen? Could Sunderland qualify for the Champions League? And I just think there was never any real seriousness to that threat. But with how much promoted teams have struggled in the Premier League as of recent, there's just no new information. Sunderland hitting the 40-point mark, which should be good, is a pretty big revelation for them. As for Leeds, they're in the thick of basically a 4-way relegation scrap. Now, they're sitting at the top of it. They're 15th. They're 3 points ahead of 18th place. So a little bit of breathing room for now, but you got to look at games like this going forward. You were at home. You were the better team throughout most of the first half. You were creating chances. You got to put some of them away. This is a game against maybe lesser on-paper opposition where points are going to be crucial and you have to get them there. But with the 3 points, Sunderland moved up to 11th place, or they're sitting in 11th place at the end of this result. Next up, we had Wolves hosting Liverpool. 19th minute, there was just lovely tribute to Diego Jota. Just wanted to shout that out. That was, it's still kind of hard to wrap your head around. It was 0-0 at halftime. 50th minute, I usually talk about goals or goals that are called back or red cards or penalties that were missed. But every once in a while, on occasion, there is something that sparks a note. And then 50th minute, Liverpool had a corner that I just, for the life of me, do not understand how they didn't score. It's just like where it bounces near the line. Guys miss it. They hit it wrong by just the littlest amount, and that's all it takes. But goals were to come. 78th minute, Wolves sent a long ball forward. Tolu Arakadari had 2 Liverpool defenders on him, but he still won the ball. And then had Rodrigo Gomez sprinting up on the other side of their attacking field, sends him in on goal. Konate kind of catches up with him, but one-on-one with the keeper. He neatly kind of dinks the ball over Allison, and somehow Wolves are up 1-0. 83rd minute, Wolves, though, poorly give the ball away in the middle of the field. The man they gave the ball away to in the middle of the field was Mohamed Salah. And yes, he is older, but that is not something you do. That is not a man you give the ball to. Takes it down, gets into the box, hits a shot with the outside of his boot, and tied the game up in the 83rd minute. But in the 94th minute, Liverpool trying to clear the ball away. Alisson's ball doesn't make it far enough up the field. It ends up with Wolves midfielder Andre. He runs towards the goal. His shot takes a wicked deflection off Joe Gomez. There's nothing Alisson can do. The ball's in the back of the net. Wolves win 2-1. So let's stop and think for a second. In the last 3 Premier League games, Wolves have drawn Arsenal, beaten Villa away, and Liverpool at home. They're now 12 points from safety, with, according to The Athletic, the easiest remaining set of fixtures, though they have one less game to play than anyone else. And you want to entertain the fairy tales. You love to romanticize the sport. And you're like, okay, can Wolves get through? Is it possible? Is it? I mean, come on. The last 3 games, you've drawn Arsenal, and you were the better team in the second half. You gave it to Villa at Villa, got 3 points. You hung with Liverpool and got a last-minute winner. I mean, any team in the world would look at Arsenal home, Villa away, Liverpool home, and be content with 7 points. And the fact that it was done by one of the teams that was supposed to be one of the worst teams ever in the history of the Premier League, you can't help but wonder, can they get out? Can they get out of this? Yes, it's going to be an incredible uphill battle, but it's the hope. It's the romanticizing of the game, of the sport, and it's going to be fun to see if this informed Wolves team can keep it going and potentially absolve themselves and survive. I mean, I definitely think after last year's inch-perfect survival, there wouldn't be any way they could get back to the top. As for Liverpool, I mean, this is just a performance to forget. This team's inconsistency compared to last season is just night and day. Mistakes at the back, not so sure defensively, struggling attacking when they were stronger last year. I don't know. I mean, it's they looked almost invincible last year in regards to just how good they were. You know, probably the second best team in Europe last year, and this Liverpool team. I mean, they've spent the money, but things are going to have to change in the summer. Next up on, I believe it was Tuesday or Wednesday. I think we're at Wednesday at this point. Yes, sorry. We're now into the Wednesday set of games. Aston Villa hosted Chelsea. This one started out early, second minute. Villa wasted no time to start the scoring. Leon Bailly down the right side sends in a pass across the face of the goal. It wasn't the hardest pass, but it was well placed. Ollie Watkins dummies it, and Douglas Luiz puts it in the back of the net. Villa are up 1-0. Though in the 35th minute, it would not be them. Chelsea with possession. Enzo Fernandez plays the ball over the top right to Malo Gusto. Gusto smartly waits, and a crashing Joao Pedro is there to put away Gusto's cross and tie this game up. Really nice sequence of play by Chelsea. Copyright won't let me put it on here, but I do recommend you go look it up. 40th minute, Villa appear to score from a counter, but Ollie Watkins is barely offsides when he receives what would have been the assist. He wasn't the man who put it in the back of the net. And then in first half stoppage time, Alejandro Garnacho has the ball on the left, passes it to Enzo Fernandez, who at the top of the box gives the slightest of passes to Joao Pedro, who finishes it past Emi Martinez to give Chelsea the lead in the game. Two wonderful assists from Enzo. Not assists, but just passes from Enzo so far in the first half. 55th minute, Chelsea were attacking again. Reece James on the right sends in a cross. It's pushed out by Martinez, but it's in the direction of Cole Palmer, who neatly puts the deflection away to give Chelsea a 3-1 lead. 64th minute, Chelsea counter again. Palmer sends a nice ball over the top to Garnacho, who correctly passes it across goal to a wide open Joao Pedro, who gets his hat trick on the day. A right decision and unselfish by Garnacho, and another example of wonderful attacking from Chelsea in this game. Final in this one, Aston Villa 1, Chelsea 4. Sometimes I think the expression like they needed to win this is redundant, because a sporting team needs to win every game every time they step on the field. But for Chelsea, they really needed to win this. Their form in recent weeks has just reeked of inconsistency, and a lot of this comes down to their discipline. They weren't in any violation today. They didn't do stupid fouls. They didn't rack up an insane amount of yellow cards. And in what feels like a rarity, they didn't get a red card. And as I've been saying for most of the season, if this Chelsea team can just keep their head on and stay disciplined, there is potential for this team to go to the next level. It's there. There are players who are good. They have, dare I say, world-class players. In this game, Enzo Fernandez was a world-class player. I don't know week to week if he is, but in this game, he was a 100 million pound man. Joao Pedro is looking like one of the best strikers in England. It took him a little bit to get started this season, but right now, he's on fire. Cole Palmer, again, dealing with injuries, a little inconsistent this season, had a good game. If he's on his day, he's good. Reece James, don't have to say anything else. Caicedo, don't have to say anything else. If Chelsea can just stay disciplined, and attack like they attacked today at Villa, the sky's the limit. I mean, you take the title out of the equation, focus on the Champions League, whether it's qualifying for it next year or, your match against PSG next week, and continue to attack like that. It was just a wonderful sequence for them. Villa, I don't know. I mean, Unai Emery gets a lot of slack for, the run-in when things are getting tough. But, this is a team that's played a lot of games. They've had some financial troubles with regulations, the PSR, to where maybe they can't make the signings that they'd hoped for. So, yes, they were trailing the leaders, but it's tough for them. I don't think they have the depth yet to compete in all the fronts and the way they want to, but they still need to fight for Champions League. Sorry if it appears as though I'm kind of tripping over my words, coming off of a bit of a cold. Next up on Wednesday was Fulham versus West Ham. One goal in this one, 65th minute. West Ham sends a ball forward. Fulham keeper Bernard Leno had a chance to get rid of it, but kind of sort of made a mess out of it. I mean, I think he expects his left back to take care of it, and he doesn't. And then he's immediately pressured by Jared Bowen. There's a bit of a duel. And then Somerville for West Ham pounces on the mess, shoots from outside the box, and gives West Ham a 1-0 lead. Final in this one, Fulham 0, West Ham 1. Huge result in the relegation scrap, in the battle. West Ham needed to go across London and get a result here, and they did. They were tough most of the game. They played well, and yeah, now they're in the thick of it. They're still occupying the relegation spot because they're tied on points with Nottingham Forest, and they have a slightly worse goal differential. But with Tottenham and Leeds also being within one game difference of where they are, this was a massive result, and do not write them off. Compound this with a couple wins. They have a Manchester City team coming up who's dealing with a lot of fixtures. This was an incredibly important win for West Ham, potentially season defining, depending on the next 10 or so fixtures. So we've talked about the relegation battles. We've talked about potential Champions League. But now it's time for teams that were in the title scrap. First up, Arsenal versus Brighton. I could have talked about either one first. We're going to go with this one first because there's a little less action. 9th minute, Bukayo Saka on the right wing for Arsenal cuts into his left foot, sends in a shot. It takes a wicked deflection, and there was really nothing the Brighton keeper, Mark Verbruggen, could do. He probably would have saved it without the deflection, but, that's why you buy the lottery ticket. You hope maybe something can work out. That's exactly what happened. That's why you shoot the shot. Arsenal took a 1-0 lead, and then they kind of sat back the rest of the game, rode it out, and walked away with a 1-0 victory. The final in this one was Brighton 0, Arsenal 1. That was a big win for Arsenal. It was a big win. But I'm going to wait a second. The next game was Manchester City versus Nottingham Forest. 31st minute, Man City attacking. Ryan Cherki is able to run at his defender easily on the right side of the box. Sends it across at chest height. Antoine Semenyo is there to acrobatically put it away, giving City a lead in this crucial game. Goes 1-0 City in the halftime. 56th minute, Nottingham Forest now on the attack. Ola Aina on the right side sends it across a little too far past the goal, but Igor Jesus does well to track it, heads it back in towards goal. Morgan Gibbs White with a defender on him hits a gnarly back heel to level the game. Manchester City keeper Gianluigi Donnarumma was not expecting that. Again, it's tied 1-1. 62nd minute, Man City have a corner. The ball is sent in well, but Rodri is completely unmarked, and the former Ballon d'Or winner does what you expect him to do, and he puts his header away for his first goal of the season. I think first goal since maybe the 2023-2024 season. And then in the 77th minute, Nottingham Forest attacking. Elliot Anderson has the ball in the midfield, plays a nice 1-2, and from outside the box, whips in a nice shot to the bottom right corner, tying up the game for Forest 2-2. But in the 96th minute, Manchester City were attacking. It was a bit of a scrap in the box, and the defender, Murillo, for Nottingham Forest made a goal line clearance in which could be a potential title deciding stop. Sorry, long pause there. I'm going to talk about both at the same time because it's a title fight. It's Arsenal versus Manchester City, and this was one of the few occurrences in this fight where we've had both teams playing at the same time. So you were kind of taking in both results as they were going. And this Wednesday went in Arsenal's favor because Arsenal got 3 points and Manchester City got 1. It's as simple as that. Arsenal went to Brighton. They got their goal. They sat back. It wasn't Jose Mourinho park the bus but it was its distant cousin who just has a little more attacking flair. I mean, they were content, and it's not like, they sat back and they absorbed pressure. Brighton really couldn't produce much. I mean, from the 75th minute on, they didn't get anything. And at the same time, the Manchester City Nottingham Forest game's going back and forth. City had some 50-50, maybe refereeing decisions that didn't go their way. I know there was one with Erling Haaland in the box. I think the kind of hubris on the Manchester City players after the game to say all 50-50 calls go against them, it's like, no, that's not how that works. And this Wednesday is for Arsenal. This could be a potential title-winning day. Because now, when Arsenal and Manchester City face each other later in the season, Arsenal could lose and still be in control of their own destiny. The gap is 7 points. City have a game in hand, but even if they win that, it takes it down to 4. And yeah, I do think Arsenal showed a little champion-esque composure in this game. You know, they've played pretty in the past before, and it didn't get them diddly shit. So play ugly, win a title. Man City, they're close. I mean, I think they were probably maybe the second or third best team on form, whether you actually look at the last 5 games or just the eye test. And yeah, it was just one of those days. A couple blips defensively cost them. I mean, I thought they were the better team. They were strong going forward, but Forest held the line and they picked up a strong 1 point in this game. And again, it's a big point for Forest because Forest is actually one of the teams. We're gonna flip back to that relegation battle. Forest is one of the teams in the relegation battle. And I think we haven't talked about all of them, so we're not gonna get too in depth with that. Final game on Wednesday was Newcastle hosting Manchester United. Had to wait till the end of halftime, the first half, sorry, right before halftime for this one to get interesting. 45th minute, Jacob Ramsey got his second yellow of the game. I wrote in my notes at first I wasn't sure if it was diving or descent. It appears to be for a dive, or simulation, as it's properly called. And then 3 minutes later, less than 3 minutes later, Newcastle actually did get that penalty. Anthony Gordon didn't dive. He was actually tripped by Bruno Fernandes in the box. He then stepped up, sent it right down the middle with some power, and Newcastle went up 1-0. Commentators stated that Newcastle would have the halftime lead, but that wasn't to be. 9 minutes into first half extra time, Man United with a free kick to the right of the box. Bruno Fernandes kind of sends it towards the front of the wall. Casemiro is the first man running towards it, and he heads it away to tie it up before halftime. It's actually whatever you would call like the line, like the offside line, where everyone's attacking on a free kick. What's that called? Like a lineup, a scrum, the crowd? I'm not sure. But then the game goes on. Manchester United attacking. And the 90th minute, William Osula, the youngster for Newcastle, took it upon himself, makes a defensive stop, plays a little 1-2, runs down the field, has 2 defenders around him, realizes he can't do anything but take it to the hoop himself, gets it on his left foot, curls it around a defender and a keeper, and against all odds, Newcastle 2, Manchester United 1 was your final score in this one. I mean, I don't know if the Manchester United fairy tale is over, but you had to figure they couldn't keep winning forever. I mean, yes, I do think Michael Carrick has added stability to this team. He's letting the attackers be attackers. I mean, you can look at the recent form of Šeško and Cunha, Mbeumo, Bruno Fernandes. But eventually, you know, this United team isn't there yet. They could be. Maybe they can set some building blocks, you know, good goalie, good attackers, need some help in the midfield. But there's talent there, there's potential there. But this team isn't there yet to sustain a serious run. I know they were probably in jest, but there were Manchester United fans saying, hey, like, you know, we're not that far off the title race. Yeah, you kind of were. And this game was one to prove it. You know, you had the man up against Newcastle for an entire half. Not only to not win it, but then lose it in the last minute. Shows, you know, United isn't quite there yet. They've been a joy to watch. They've been incredible to watch. You know, their attitudes, their attacking play, they look much better compared to where they were 3 months ago. But this is just, you know, it reminded us that they're still United. And Newcastle was a good win. You know, they've been inconsistent. It's been busy with them. You know, they're in the FA Cup. They're in the Champions League. Their league form's been, you know, with Larry David, pretty okay. But again, United are still third. They're 9 points off City, 16 off of Arsenal, which might be, yeah, with 9 games to go, it might be a little too much to ask. But yeah, Newcastle down in 12th. Champions League next year, not looking good. They are, do some math, if England get that 5th spot, which they probably will, and provided that every English team doesn't lose in the Champions League going forward, I'm just going to assume that England's getting it. Newcastle is sitting 9 points off that spot with 9 games to go. And there are 6 teams between them. So I just think for Newcastle at this point going forward, keep it respectful in the league. do what you got to do, and try to finish above Sunderland. Yeah, I don't know. But there was one game on Thursday. It was Tottenham versus Crystal Palace. Tottenham, been in crisis, so let's see how this goes. Probably should speak a little louder. 29th minute, Palace had a goal, not a ghost, a goal, ruled back for offsides. 5 minutes later, though, or 5 minutes later, good lord, Tottenham have a corner, they play it short, the cross goes a little long, Archie Gray manages to recover it, creates a chance, actually a fantastic play by Gray, threads the ball to Dominic Solanke, who opens up the scoring for Tottenham. Tottenham are up, they need got goal, they need this, win bad. Well, 3 minutes later, Mickey Van de Ven takes down Ismail Sarr in the box. It was not a stupid tackle. You know, he had to, you know, I don't blame anyone trying to stop him in that point. But, you know, you are doing your team a disservice. Sarr then stepped up and coolly converted the penalty himself. Again, this game is now tied up 1-1. Tottenham trying to take it into halftime, down a man, were not able to do it. 3 minutes in the first half stoppage time, Tottenham lost the ball deep in their own half. It was Tell. The ball lands with Adam Wharton, who gives Jurgen Strand Larsen the cleanest little through ball. Strand Larsen neatly finishes to give Palace a 2-1 lead. Got the ball right under Vicario. And then in the 7th minute of first half extra time, Adam Wharton plays another through ball. This one a little more in the air, lands perfectly between the center backs, and Ismail Sarr is there to put it away. Crystal Palace go up 3-1, and that was actually the final score. Tottenham 1, Crystal Palace 3. We all love to make fun of Tottenham. I mean, it's so much fun. It's a worldwide thing. And when Tottenham's form really started to take a dip, and they fired Thomas Frank, and then they bring on Tudor, they had a little bit of an interim manager there. The jokes were there, like, okay, maybe Spurs could get relegated. They're towards the bottom of the table. And they were in the bottom 5 spots last year. But I never took it too seriously. I mean, yeah, they lost to Arsenal. They lost a couple other games. But I didn't take it too seriously. And then, with Forest getting points, West Ham getting points, Leeds United being 3 points behind you, you get Crystal Palace at home, and you completely make a mess out of it. A dumb red card. You're outplayed most of the game. And now, all of a sudden, we actually do have chance that Tottenham could be relegated. It is no longer a joke. It is within the realm of possibility. And it's going to be tough for them going forward. They have Champions League fixtures. They have a difficult run in the Premier League. And I can't believe I'm saying it. I mean, listen, I love to make fun of Tottenham, but I try to take stuff seriously on this show. And I can't. I can't take it seriously. I have to. No, I can take it seriously. I can't joke. I have to be real. Tottenham Hotspur are in a relegation fight. Fucking say that 3 times. You won't believe it. Yes, they're not the biggest club in the world. And sometimes I think being in the right place in the right time in the growth of the Premier League has overinflated how big of a club Tottenham is. But they are still too big to fail. This is a team that, for no reason, should be going down. If they go down, it would probably be the biggest relegation in the history of the sport. Maybe only on par of River Plate getting relegated in Argentina a few years ago. I mean, there's so much wrong with them. First, the injuries, which is tough. The managerial decisions, getting rid of Ange Postecoglou after he gives you your first meaningful trophy in 30 years. Yes, more than 30 years, because the League Cup is a joke. And that was 2008. So you had an FA Cup, what was it, in the 90s? That was your last trophy. The man brings you it, you kick him to the curb. And he's got to be laughing. He's going to be laughing all the way to the bank. I mean, it's karma. You know, your players, they don't really look up for it. Yes, there's certain ones hurt. James Madison is hurt. Kulusevski's hurt. But I read something similar to this. It feels like they have mercenaries and not soldiers. You know, it doesn't feel like these guys are going to die for the badge, do whatever it takes for Tottenham not to be relegated. These guys are like, oh, shit, this is a tough one. Where am I going to end up next season? And, I mean, they got just absolutely dominated. And they got dominated by 2 wonderful players for Crystal Palace. Adam Wharton, Ismail Sarr. Fantastic. I mean, the talent factory that's been Crystal Palace in the last couple of years is just remarkable. And they could just keep these guys. Where do they find these guys? Well, I mean, clearly, you know, scouts and technical, you know. bit of a stupid question on my end, but you get what I'm saying. You know, the fact that Palace has lost guys like Elise and Eze, and they can just keep producing good talent is incredible. And yeah, that's where the Premier League's at. Arsenal have a 7-point lead at the top, but again, like Wolves all the way at the bottom, they've got one game in hand. Manchester City, United, Villa, and Chelsea round out the rest of the Champions League spots. Only slightly behind them on goal differential as things stand now. Liverpool sits 6th. Provided a team in the top 7 win the FA Cup, Brentford and Everton then round out the rest of those Premier League European spots. And yeah, down at the end, you know, the relegation battle, you got Leeds at 31 points, Tottenham at 29 points, Forest at 28, and then just 4 goals behind them in the differential, West Ham in 18th. Burnley and Wolves, of course, taking up the other relegation spots. So the other thing, one of the other things I want to touch on in the midweek, we had the Spanish Copa del Rey semifinals. Barcelona was hosting Atletico Madrid. Now this is a 2-leg affair. Atletico Madrid was coming off of a 4-0 victory over Barcelona in the first leg. Barcelona almost pulled some La Remontada-esque magic, but they were not able to do that. Marc Bernal got 2 goals in the 29th and 72nd minute. Rafinha got a penalty right before halftime, but it ultimately proved not to be enough. Atletico Madrid played some of the most horrific terrorist ball you'll ever want to see. Barcelona had 71% percentage of the ball. They had a majority of the shots. And yeah, Atletico held the line. Final score on aggregate was 4-3. Barcelona won 3 on the day. The team Atletico Madrid will be playing in the Copa del Rey final is Real Sociedad, because on Wednesday, in the other Copa del Rey semifinal, Sociedad came into this one with a 1-0 lead. They doubled their lead in the 87th minute with a penalty from Mikel Oyarzabal. And yeah, with a tight victory over their Basque rivals, we now have the Spanish Copa del Rey final of Atletico Madrid versus Real Sociedad. Sociedad winning it a few years back. And I know Atletico Madrid under Diego Simeone has historically really been poor in the they've been poor in the Copa del Rey, you know, considering the fact they've won the league twice under him. They've won the Europa League. They've made Champions League finals. They've been good in all sorts of world football. The Copa del Rey's just not been their thing, and maybe they can change that. Yeah, it was a bit of a cup midweek as well. I want to touch on a couple others. The Coppa Italia, their semifinals, which are also 2-legged, took place, but they were in the first leg, unlike their Spanish counterparts. Como, who've kind of been the story of the season so far in Italy, drew Inter Milan 0-0 at home. The reverse fixture is going to be away at Milan. And then the other one, Lazio, who've been disappointing in the league so far this season with the 2-2 draw against Atalanta. Kind of a quick back and forth. Lazio scored in the 47th. Pasalic ties it up for Atalanta in the 51st. Lazio go up again in the 87th minute. And then the American, Yunus Musa, with the tying goal in the 89th minute. Again, the second leg will be at Atalanta. And then the last one is the French Cup. The Coupe de France was in its quarterfinals. No PSG, so, traditional trophy, Well, not traditional in the regards that, you expect PSG to win every trophy that comes out of France, whether it be the league or the cup. So knowing they're out of it, I think gives it a little more interest. Strasbourg with a 2-1 victory over Stade Reims. Nice with a 0-0 draw against Lorient. They ended up winning on penalties. Marseille went 2-2 with Toulouse. Went to penalties as well, and the Arsenal loanee Ethan Nwaneri stepped up and missed it for them. And then Lens picked up a 2-2 victory over Lyon. A 64th minute red card didn't stop them. They held the line, even giving up a last-minute goal, and then they won in penalties as well. So yeah, a Final Four of Strasbourg, Nice, Marseille, and Lens. Well, it's different, and it'll be a good, moment for one of those franchises. I'm gonna roll through the weekend games pretty quickly. Yeah, this was an English FA Cup weekend. There was to be no Premier League game, and this was the fifth round, so the round of 16, so 8 total games. Not gonna go as in depth with them as I do with the regular Premier League games. Again, that's just because coming off of a cold. But on Friday, first up, Liverpool traveling to Wolves 3 days after they just played, which is always. I feel like that happens when you play Football Manager and you got to play a team in the league and the cup back to back. Like it always happens. Well, it happened in real life as well. Though the results were flipped this time. Liverpool played like they were Liverpool and Wolves played like they were Wolves. Goals from Andy Robertson, Mo Salah, and Curtis Jones moved on Liverpool. Wolves did get a consolation He-Chan in the 91st minute, but it was not enough. 3 games on Saturday. Arsenal played Mansfield Town. Arsenal setting up in some weird formation I've never seen from them before. Trossard goes hurt. They kind of make it a more normal formation and they get it together. Goals from Noni Madueke and Eberechi Eze. Though Mansfield Town at one point did tie it up in the 50th minute, Arsenal still prevailed 2-1. Wrexham versus Chelsea. That was a chaotic matchup. Wrexham kind of just been the fairy tale of Welsh soccer in the last few years. Took an early lead in the 18th minute. Chelsea would answer back in the 40th minute, though Wrexham would take a lead again in the 78th minute. Chelsea, though, would pull away. A goal in the 82nd minute was sent it to extra time, and then a Garnacho goal in the 96th minute, and Joao Pedro just adding another in the 125th saw Chelsea advance 4-2. There was also a red card for Wrexham at the end of regular time. And another matchup on Saturday in the FA Cup was Newcastle hosting Manchester City. Newcastle took an early lead, Harvey Barnes in the 18th minute, but it was not enough. Manchester City, with goals from Savinho and a double from Omar Marmoush, pulled away to win 3-1. Keeping the FA Cup matchups rolling, on Sunday, Southampton traveled to Fulham and got the best of them, the championship side, picking up a 1-0 victory over the Premier League team. Another Premier League team losing to lower division, Port Vale being the underdogs, getting the shocker 1-0 victory over Sunderland. And then the wrap up on Sunday, Leeds United with pretty convincing 3-0 victory over Norwich City. And then to wrap it up on Monday, West Ham took a 2-1 lead in a halftime against Brentford. Brentford tied up in the 81st minute, went all the way to penalties where West Ham won 5-3. So that sets us up for the FA Cup quarter-final round. The draw was right before the West Ham Brentford game on Monday, and we have some exciting fixtures. So with Joe Cole and Joe Hart making the draw, in the first weekend of April, we will see Southampton hosting Arsenal, Chelsea hosting Port Vale, Man City versus Liverpool, and West Ham versus Leeds. So this is what I think is going to happen. Arsenal will take a rotated side into Southampton and still pick up a victory to head to Wembley in London. Chelsea will get a pretty easy victory over Port Vale as they're the home team. The big knockout matchup here is Manchester City hosting Liverpool. Liverpool probably walk away in that one. And then one that I'm really intrigued about is West Ham hosting Leeds United in the last quarterfinal matchup. Both those teams right now are pretty deep into the relegation fight. So seeing how seriously they take this game and where they are in the league when that time comes should be pretty interesting. So how did things go in other leagues on the weekend? We'll run through this pretty quickly. Starting out in Spain, La Liga, Real Madrid started us off on Friday in a bit of a nerve-wracking matchup for them, getting a 2-1 victory over Celta Vigo. On Saturday as well, Osasuna drew Mallorca 2-2. Levante drew Girona 1-1. Atletico Madrid with a 3-2 victory over Real Sociedad. Maybe an early look into that future Copa del Rey final. And then Barcelona in a huge result in this title fight, a 1-0 victory over Athletic Club. On Sunday, Villarreal 2-1 victory over Elche. Getafe got past Real Betis. Sevilla 1-1 over Real Vallecano. Valencia 3-2 over Alaves. And then the La Liga weekend ended on Monday with Espanyol's 1-1 victory over Real Oviedo. There's a pretty sizable gap in La Liga's table. Barcelona are now up to 4 points with 11 games to go in Spain. I know these teams don't drop the points a lot, Real Madrid, they're struggling with injuries. Barcelona seem to be a little bit healthier, playing a little bit better soccer right now. And yeah, Real Madrid got past Celta by the skin of their teeth, but if it hadn't gone that way, I think this title race might have been done as dusted. I mean, these little gaps in La Liga go a long way, and I'm really intrigued to see how this one plays out for the rest of the season. We'll run through the German Bundesliga pretty quickly. With Bayern Munich's victory over Dortmund, not in this weekend, but the weekend before, this league's pretty much over. They have an 11-point gap at the top, even with Dortmund defeating Cologne this weekend and Bayern getting past Mönchengladbach on Friday 4-1. Other results: Hoffenheim traveled to Heidenheim, picked up a 4-2 victory. Mainz drew Stuttgart 2-2. Leipzig got past Augsburg 2-1. Freiburg drew Bayer Leverkusen 3-3. Hamburg with a 2-1 victory over Wolfsburg, and then on Sunday, St. Pauli drew Eintracht Frankfurt 0-0. Werder Bremen defeating Union Berlin 4-1. Yeah, just to recap, Bayern has an 11-point lead at the top. Hoffenheim, Stuttgart, and Leipzig are rounding out the top five. I think as of right now, going into the Champions League round of 16, the German league has that fifth. They have the fifth Champions League, that extra spot that two countries get. And then, yeah, Wolfsburg sitting down in the relegation spots in this one. This league's pretty over. It would be like the most insane title collapse over the next 9 games if Bayern Munich weren't able to win it all. Now let's go over to Italy. Napoli got past Torino 2-1. Como, staying in those Champions League spots, got past Cagliari 2-1. Atalanta drew Udinese 2-2. Juventus got a much-needed 4-0 victory over Pisa. Lecce over Cremonese. GS Verona defeated Bologna. Fiorentina drew Parma. And Genoa getting past AS Roma, as well as Lazio getting past Sassuolo on Monday. But the big result of the weekend was on Sunday. AC Milan with a 1-0 victory over Inter Milan. A Estupiñán goal in the 35th minute might have opened the door for a title race in Italy. Inter Milan now only 7 points ahead of AC Milan. A couple more odd results like that, and it could really open things up. Inter Milan, though, will benefit from the fact that they are out of European competitions, and they're not really competing on two fronts like they had been in the last couple seasons. So, yeah, I mean, it's a result that potentially opens up the title race, but it may be a little too late. Napoli also 11 points behind Inter. And yeah, Como in that 4th spot to round it off. So yeah, that's all we got from the weekend. But there's some Champions League I want to talk about. Let's get in a little Champions League run out. Probably show will be a little close to an hour shorter this week. So I want to quickly talk about all the Champions League games that I missed. Atletico Madrid got the best of Club Brugge. They won 4-1. It was already 3-3 on aggregate. Final score 7-4. Bayer Leverkusen and Karabag finished 0-0, which made its total aggregate 2-0 in favor of Bayer Leverkusen. The massive story of Bodo Glimt getting past Inter Milan, which is a shame. I mean, I really had a lot of good notes on that one, but Bodo Glimt walked away 5-2. I mean, yeah, I was even taking notes on like comparable stories, like Apoel over Lyon in 2011-2012, Ajax's run to the semifinals in 2018-19. Even Club Brugge's 5-2 win over Atalanta last year, I talked about that. And kind of the indictment on Serie A. Actually, I'll touch on that in a minute. Newcastle getting a 93 aggregate victory over Korabag. Atalanta with a nice comeback over Dortmund. Galatasaray holding it out against Juventus. PSG cutting it close against Monaco. And then Real Madrid getting the job done against Benfica. So after those results, we got the draw. We know the bracket, and let's make some predictions. This is how I think the Champions League round of 16 onwards goes. The top of the bracket has PSG playing Chelsea, Galatasaray playing Liverpool. I think Liverpool is going to get past Galatasaray. Chelsea PSG excites me because there's two Chelseas we can get. There's disciplined Chelsea and undisciplined Chelsea. I think disciplined Chelsea could win this tie. But I feel like on average over 180 minutes, we're going to see some undisciplined action from Chelsea. So I think we're going to set up for a PSG-Liverpool quarterfinal, and I think we're going to see PSG on to the semifinal. The next other side or other part of the bracket, Real Madrid playing Manchester City. I think Manchester City, even though they're going to be super congested, competing for a quadruple, Real Madrid's injuries really scare me. It feels like there's a Real Madrid player going down every week, and I think they'll go through. Bayern Munich should beat the brakes off of Atalanta. I've been saying that for a week, and I may know the result of how the Tuesday game went. That would set up for a Manchester City Bayern Munich quarterfinal, and I think just the nature of the Premier League title fight, the FA Cup run, the League Cup run, will wear down on Manchester City, and a Bayern Munich team who can rest their players better will go through onto the semifinals. Newcastle Barcelona, actually one of the more toss up round of 16 matchups, but I think Barcelona should go through. I think it'll set up an all Spanish quarterfinal with Atletico Madrid playing Tottenham. And this is kind of my surprise. I don't know. I feel like no one's giving them credit, but I watched the two legs in the Copa del Rey, and I think there's a pretty solid chance Atletico Madrid could actually advance to the semifinals over Barcelona. And then Bodo Glimt keep their incredible story going. I think they'll get past Sporting because who just doesn't love a story. And then Bayer Leverkusen, Arsenal. I think Arsenal is going to wipe the floor with Leverkusen. And then in the quarterfinals, I think Arsenal is going to wipe the floor with Bodo Glimt. So that would leave a semifinal of PSG versus Bayern Munich, Atletico Madrid versus Arsenal. I think Bayern Munich gets past PSG in a classic semifinal. I think Atletico and Arsenal play probably the opposite style of a semifinal. And in the final, I have Bayern Munich defeating Arsenal in extra time. I know Arsenal got the best of Bayern Munich in the league phase, but I think Bayern Munich, with just the less congested fixtures and being able to rest players, will take that advantage over an Arsenal team that's just busily competing in four fronts. And yeah, that's it on the Champions League. There's like a few things I want to talk about, just kind of like the disappointment of Italian teams in the last round. Juventus losing to Galatasaray in the way they did. Inter Milan losing to Bodo Glimt in the way they did. But moving on to the Europa League, so now we know that round of 16. As for like English teams, Nottingham Forest is going up against Midtjylland out of Denmark. I would fancy them, though again it's going to be tough because they're in a relegation scrap. And I don't see them. I think whoever wins out of Stuttgart and Porto will get the best of Forest in the quarterfinals. Aston Villa has a tricky little side of their own bracket. They've got Lille, and then they play the winner of Bologna-Roma. And Bologna's recent Coppa Italia winners. Roma, decent side themselves. That could be interesting. I look at the other side of that Europa League bracket. I think it's a little weaker. You know, you've got Betis over there playing Panathinaikos. I think they might be one of the favorites to come out of that side. Lyon's over there as well. They got Celta Vigo in the round of 16. So that would be interesting. And then going on to the Conference League, which those games will be played. All those games will be played on Thursday in the round of 16. Crystal Palace play AEK Larnaca out of Cyprus. On their side of the bracket, you have like Sparta Prague, AZ Alkmaar, Shakhtar Donetsk, Fiorentina team that's really struggling in Italy. And then on the other side of the bracket, you got like Rayo Vallecano, Mainz, Strasbourg, Rijeka, AEK Athens. So I think Palace actually have a really decent shot at walking away with this. And they have a really decent shot. But yeah, that's all I got. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Again, like, subscribe. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, for audio, video. I do thank anyone who bears with me. I'm coming off of a cold, which knocked me out last week, which is why we didn't get one. But we'll be back on an episode on the 17th, where we'll talk the Premier League midweek action. We'll talk the first leg of the Champions League, though with the nature of when that comes out, it'll probably be at the back end of the episode. And yeah, thank you for tuning in to Talk Soccer Me. This is episode 26, and this is the best soccer podcast you've never heard of.